criticism. Exciting day, Thursday. Not because it's Thursday, but because of World War III. Whoop. I mean, terrible. But let's see what Cgtn is saying, because nowadays Cgtn is the most important thing. Cgtn, the Chinese people never will speak openly only if there's a real open situation. Open situations in Cgtn. I guess nothing is going to happen, but look. So you never know what's going to happen. China is under attack, I guess. China under attack. China 2.0. The world against China. The world against China. China 2.0. That's it. Politics. April 9, 2025. President Xi calls for building community with shared future with neighboring countries. April 9, 2025. Chinese President Xi Jinping, also General Secretary of the Communist Party of China Central Committee, and the photograph didn't upload it. But there's a beautiful photo from Xi Jinping. Well, Chinese President Xi Jinping has called for building a community with a shared future with neighboring countries, and so striving to open new ground for China's neighborhood work. And Xi wants to be friends forever and never be enemies. This is not a joke. This was Wang Ji said. Wang Ji is not a drunk. Wang Ji is not a drunk. I will be friend forever of Wang Ji if he dress a suit, a Hello Kitty custom. What about the Hello Kitty custom? Because Wang Ji is so cute. She also General Secretary of the Communist Party of China (CPC), Central Committee and Chairman of the Central Military Commission, made the remarks at a central conference on work related to neighboring countries, which was held in Beijing from Tuesday to Wednesday. Members, well, this sounds like a meeting just to share some cookies and be friends. Anyway, there will be a lot of meetings forever in the foreseeable 5 years. No question about it. There will be threats constantly, all day long. Members of the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the CPC Central Committee, including Li Qiang, Xiao Leji, Wang Haning, Kai Qi, Ding Weixiang, and Li Xi, and Vice President Han Sheng also attended the conference. In his speech, Xi systemically summarized the achievements and experience of China's neighborhood work in the new era, scientifically analyzed the current situation, and outlined the goals, tasks, ideas, and measures for the next phase of neighborhood work. While presiding over the meeting, Premier Li Qiang stressed the need to thoroughly implement the spirit of Xi's important speech and to earnestly carry out the various tasks in work related to neighboring countries. The conference highlighted that China's vast territory and long borders make its neighborhood a vital foundation for national development and prosperity, a key front for safeguarding national security, a priority area in the country's overall diplomacy, and a crucial link in building a community with a shared future for humanity. The conference called for viewing neighboring regions through a global perspective and strengthening the sense of responsibility and mission in advancing China's neighborhood work. Source Xinhua's news agency. Well, China is terrified. No, I like Wang Yi, but what he said, what China said through Wang Yi's quote last week, that will be forever. That will be a forever misled, I guess, because be friends forever and never be enemies. That sounds good to me, you know, but maybe things can. The question is, desire changes. You never can say forever and never, forever friends, never enemies, because if I win lottery, I will definitely kill a lot of people. So understand? Desires change. And well, politics. April 10, 2025. China EU vow joint efforts to uphold multilateral trading system. April 10, 2025. So China EU vow joint efforts to not go into war. To stop. Yeah, no. So this is regular, but yeah, the United States is making very stupid moves, joining the EU and China. Let's see. And here we are. We have China-Europe freight train depart from Xi'an International Port Station, Xi'an City, northwest China's Jiangxi province. China and the European Union (EU) vowed to jointly uphold the multilateral trading system with the World Trade Organization (WTO) at its core, China's Commerce Ministry said in a statement on Thursday. The statement came after China's Commerce Minister Wang Wentao and European Commissioner for Trade and Economic Security Maroš Šefčovič held a talk via video on Tuesday, during which they discussed various issues, including enhancing China-EU economic and trade cooperation and responses to the U.S. imposition of so-called quote-unquote reciprocal tariffs. It's just bullshit, because of course there will be always something reciprocal in trade, you know, something reciprocal. There will be never absolutely free trade, never. So it will be always reciprocal. The only matter is the percentages. And the US is trying to abuse, but as I see, by this day, April 10, the United States is destroying itself. During their talks, Wang noted that the U.S. quote-unquote reciprocal tariffs seriously violate the legitimate interests of other countries, breach the WTO rules, undermine the rules-based multilateral trading system, and disrupt the stability of the global economic order. The U.S. move is a typical act of unilateralism, protectionism, and economic building, Wang said. I think that China firmly opposes it and has taken countermeasures to defend its own rights and interests. Quote, "There are no winners in a trade war, and protectionism leads nowhere," end quote, he said. China is willing to resolve disputes through consultation and negotiation, but will fight till the end in the United States if the United States keep acting willfully, Wang said. Willfully. And this is tricky too, you know. Of course, this is just serious international relations acting willfully, but in the psychological, philosophical, deep sphere, everything is an act of will. Even slaves act something. Forget about that. He stressed that under current circumstances, China and the EU jointly upholding the rules-based multilateral trading system and staying committed to trade liberalization and facilitation will inject more stability and certainty into the global economic and trade landscape. Oh, the people are getting shots there. This is shots for influenza, yeah, against flu. I guess I don't need it. By this time, I'm still. I did get ill. I did get flu 2 months ago. Sefcovic said, I lost myself. He stressed that under current circumstances, China and the EU jointly upholding the rules-based multilateral trading system and staying committed to trade liberalization and facilitation will inject more stability and certainty into the global economic and trade landscape. Sefcovic said the US tariffs have severely impacted international trade and the EU is willing to work with other WTO members, including China, to ensure the normal operation of international trade. The EU values its economic and trade relations with China and is willing to strengthen dialogue and communication with China and promote greater two-way market access, investment and industrial cooperation, Sefcovic said. According to the statement, the two sides agreed to start consultation on issues concerning market access at an early date and immediately start negotiations on electric vehicle pricing commitments, as well as issues related to bilateral investment cooperation in the auto sector. A lot of cars. No, few of them are Chinese. I guarantee you, this is just bullshit. Yep, right here in Chile, just crap, oil crap. Both sides support this resumption of the China-EU trade remedy dialogue mechanism to discuss trade diversion issues and properly manage trade frictions, according to the statement. The two sides also vow to continue to strengthen communication under the WTO framework, jointly promote the WTO reform, and uphold the multilateral trading system with the WTO at its core, the statement noted. Xinhua News Agency. And the third news is a huge news, and well, this is what's matter. It's 5 minutes long. I will make in a half an hour. But business, April 10, 2025, understanding China's response to the US aggressive tariff hikes. Which is the most important news we will see this decade, this century. Don't listen Pepe Escobar. This is the great news. This is the big news. In just a few days, the US-China tariff dispute has intensified dramatically, and we have a photograph. Qingdao Qiangwan Container Terminal, Qingdao City, is China's Shandong province. Evergreen, full of green. evergreen, yeah. There's a lot of money always. In just a few days, the US-China tariff dispute has intensified dramatically. On April 2, the US imposed a 34% quote-unquote reciprocal tariff on Chinese imports following earlier hikes from 10% in February to 20% in March. In response, China quickly retaliated on April 4th with matching tariffs on US goods. This move triggered a sharp escalation from US President Donald Trump, who imposed an additional 50% tariff on Chinese imports, bringing the total up to 104%. China's response was swift. It raised tariffs on U.S. goods from 34% to 84%, placed 12 U.S. entities under export controls, and added 6 companies to quote-unquote unreliable entity list. Trump, however, countered by raising tariffs on Chinese goods to 125%, while announcing a 90-day delay for tariffs on other countries. With tensions rising, the question now is how should one interpret China's response and position in this escalating trade dispute? Question mark. How? Well, in my opinion, China is just trying to survive. China is just trying not to be a slave anymore, not working for free. That's it. And let me tell you, China, if there is not a hot war, a classic war, they will be able to do so because, oh look, there's a lot of carrots, free cheap carrots over there. I will back here. This is a free market. This market is really free. That's the only place where there's freedom. And that's it. China doesn't want to work for free, as everybody. Nobody wants to work for free, as the U.S. want others to do them for them. China's systematic view on trade ties with U.S. China released a white paper on Wednesday outlining its view of the bilateral trade relationship. A key message was clear: economic ties between China and the U.S. should not be judged solely by the goods trade imbalance. Instead, a more comprehensive framework, including goods trade, services trade, and local sales by each country's enterprises, should be taken to assess the economic relationship. According to the U.S. Department of Commerce, China's share of the U.S. goods trade deficit was dropped for 6 consecutive years, from 47.5% in 2018 to 24.6% in 2024. Meanwhile, the U.S. enjoys a substantial advance in services trade. From 2001 to 2023, bilateral services trade surged from $8.95 billion to $66.86 billion, a 6-fold increase. In 2023 alone, the U.S. ran $26.57 billion services trade surplus with China. Additionally, U.S. companies operating in China recorded $490.52 billion in sales 2022, compared to $78.64 billion for Chinese companies in the U.S. So, Cgtn is saying the U.S. is making America in China. Cgtn is making America in China. Quote, China adopts a systematic way of thinking, looking at the whole picture. The US, however, tends to focus only on aspects that seem unfavorable to itself, often exaggerating them while ignoring the benefits. End quote, saying Gao Linggun, a researcher at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. He further noted that in the U.S. persists in escalating tensions, China has ample tools for counteraction, including in the services trade sector. Nevertheless, any countermeasures will be carefully calibrated to minimize domestic impact. Another subtitle: U.S. domestic challenges drive external pressure. China also views the U.S. tariff strategy as a means of shifting blame for internal economic challenges. while the China-US Phase 1 trade agreement signed in January 2022 emphasized mutual respect and resolution of disputes through dialogue, the US has since imposed multiple restrictive measures that China believes violate the agreement. For example, in October 2022, the US imposed sweeping controls on semiconductor exports to China. That same year, Chinese imports of US semiconductors and semiconductor manufacturing equipment dropped by 23% and 17.9% respectively. Similarly, Boeing's aircraft deliveries to China were significantly impacted by reduced output and safety concerns, notably following two crashes involving the 737 MAX. These incidents led to widespread grounding of the aircraft, further disrupting China-US aerospace trade. Moreover, many US products have lost appeal in the Chinese market due to price, performance, and safety issues. These factors have discouraged Chinese companies from market-based imports of certain American goods. Which goods? This is very interesting to me. What the hell American produce? What the hell? Nothing. Peanut cream, peanuts, corn. Shang Liangqi, vice president of the China Taxation Society, said that by suppressing Chinese companies, the US aims to contain China's innovation and development. Quote, "This is a form of extreme pressure. The US is trying to suppress China's competitiveness in advanced manufacturing and force it into a follower role," end quote, said Chang. China also points to its consistent fulfillment of trade commitments, in contrast to the US record. While both sides agreed in the Phase 1 deal to avoid forced technology transfers, the US government's recent moves, such as pressuring TikTok to divest, is a blatant violation of this principle. Yeah, I don't know what the hell happened to TikTok. China has also opened up extensively since joined the World Trade Organization in 2001, cutting its average tariff rate from 15.3% to 9.8% by 2010. Following further steps under the Information Technology Agreement, that rate dropped to 7.3% by mid-2023. Quote, subtitle. I guess this name is subtitle. I'm not sure about this, but this is another paragraph. China's consistent stance, dialogue and mutual respect. Throughout the trade dispute, China's position has been consistent. Disputes should be resolved through dialogue based on equality and mutual benefit. In the white paper, China stated that despite the US repeated actions to suppress Chinese businesses and raise tariffs, China has not unilaterally exit the Phase 1 agreement or activated force majeure clauses, both options available under the deal. Instead, it has chosen to honor its commitments, prioritizing the broader China-US relationship and the interests of businesses and people on both sides. China has continued to call on the US to correct its course, cancel all unilateral tariffs, and its economic coercion. At the WTO's Good Council meeting in Geneva on Wednesday, China voiced serious concern over the US quote-unquote reciprocal tariff measures, warning that they not only fail to address trade imbalances, but also threaten to undermine global trade order. China reiterated that there are no winners in trade wars and urged all nations to seek multilateral solutions through cooperation. The Chinese Ministry of Commerce and Ministry of Foreign Affairs have both emphasized that China does not wish does not wish to engage in trade war and that the door to negotiation remains open, but not under conditions of extreme pressure or intimidation. China also stated that the US insists on further escalation. China will stand its ground and respond firmly. And yeah, so Cgtn is not talking about the two Chinese soldiers destroying Zelensky's ass. Zelensky's fake ass, Zelensky's ridiculous loser ass. EU approves initial retaliatory measures against US tariffs. Oh, EU is fighting against it. And the last one, China's PPI dropped due to seasonal factors in March. I want to read the last one, the EU, but by now it doesn't.